Oh, yeah, we're on. It feels like a long time since we've been here in studio, because it probably has been a long time. Welcome back to 4020 live, actually live, on a day where we are not celebrating the what did they say? What was the Castleford statement? The removal of Lee Radford by mutual consent, probably. That's how they describe things these days. Castleford. Professionalism. He's been relieved of his first team duties by mutual agreement. What was the duties then? Did he do the teas or something? I don't know. But he's gone. Lee Radford is gone.
It's a very strange turn of phrase, relieved of. And also he was saying moving in different directions, which again you think, well, what direction would the club go in where the coach is going in a different direction? So this clearly is deeper than the 3 results at the start of the season, although they may have exacerbated action by the board. But I think it's come out in the Yorkshire Post as well this morning when they've done a follow-up that Lee Radford had already informed the board that he wouldn't be renewing his contract at the end of this year, and that there are 14 players out of contract at the end of the season, which is a situation they knew about, but it's very hard to divorce what's happened with the Joe Westerner situation and players being out drinking a week before the season started. So, yes, doesn't look great for the Tigers.
No, it doesn't.
Cassing crisis.
I mean, we would have had the shirt on, but we haven't got one.
We didn't really want to start with that, though, did we?
Did we not?
Well, no, we haven't properly paid tribute to St Helens being world champions, to the season kicking off, to
Leeds beating the world champions.
Well, by virtue of the fact that they are now the world champions.
Ricky Hyam was right on Friday night. He sent out the tweet saying, why are we talking about referees? This is paraphrasing. This is not exactly what he said. Why are we talking about referees? Why are we talking about referees? Why are we talking about referees? Why are we not talking about the players? Thursday night, Salford, Warrington, one of the best interception tries I've ever seen. The skill from Ken Sear to keep hold of the ball and then pass it to his teammate was superb. But at the end, we're all talking about 8-point tries. 2 in a game, first time probably ever.
Well, I don't remember 2 in a game, and I've been watching for 150 years. But in fact, 1 a season would be a lot. Yeah. But I think, if you take the overview out of individual club performances, the first 3 weeks of the season have been quite encouraging. We always know that we can rely on the players, but I think the crowds have been good. The pre-match entertainment has gone up a level. I think that there has been an awareness that we need to focus more on the guys who are playing the game rather than those who are running the game.
I wish someone would tell Super League that.
Yeah, I mean, going back to St Helens in Australia, the focus was on people like James Roby and Jack Wellesby and Johnny Lomax. So, yeah, I think you can only but be encouraged by what we're serving up on the field. I think there is still a question to be asked about, is enough happening off the field to match that? But no, what a week! I don't think you can go past St Helens and what they achieved in Australia, and I don't think we will see that fully recognised until legacy is talked about. But we said it very briefly just after they'd won that I think this now does confirm them as the greatest team of the Super League. The feat of what they have done to go over there and beat a team as good as Penrith, with both having the same amount of preparation time in a really difficult climate. The Saints aren't used to training at this time of the year in 40-degree heat. To play the way that they did and to be so cool and collected in Golden Point extra time, I think you then roll that into, well, there's clearly has always been and will always be a hangover from winning the World Club Challenge. Psychologically, you've got to be on such a high to win a game like that, that when you then travel back halfway around the world and then come down and then try and get up a level again to match Super League teams that obviously haven't made that journey, have had more time to prepare for you. You are carrying some knocks, but it's more the psychological. The fact that they won at Castleford and then they came so close to beating Leeds, and what let them down was their discipline, which is a manifestation of fatigue. I think we need to pay tribute to them at the start of this, because I don't think you can say it enough. What a sensational team.
I equated it to Easter last week when your laptop died, in so much as that
It's back.
The game against Leeds was the third game after Easter.
Yeah, it was.
So they got through the Cas game on Easter Monday last week.
And I think
then,
talking to...
Not to take anything away from Leeds' performance.
No, but that is a factor. And talking to... And I think Rowan Smith said in the press conference afterwards, they knew it was a good time to be getting St Helens. I think this week's game against Lee, again, will be tough for St Helens. I know that Paul Wellens has immediately gave the players 3 days off, so they've had a weekend and they get today, Monday, off to refresh, just get away from each other and the sound of each other's voices, and they need to do it all again, and they'll need that. But I do think that even speaking to other players that have played in World Club Challenges, whether that have been over in Australia or here, you have to be at such a mental peak so early in the season that it is physically and particularly mentally impossible to then play at a consistent level in the 3 or 4 weeks after it. And the fact that they did win a game at Cas, and you know, Cas had a few chances and could have pushed them a little bit further, but the fact that they found the resolve to do that, and they so nearly did. You know, they've lost with 30 seconds to go against Leeds, and it is an enormous credit to them. And I don't want us to forget that what they achieved by beating Penrith and winning the World Club Challenge was immense, not only for themselves but for the sport. And I do think that the first 3 weeks of the competition is partly built around the fact that it got that massive boost from Saints winning the World Club.
We're coming up to the anniversary of the programme. 2014 we started at Radio Yorkshire, and somehow still going. I mean, we've launched the careers of all these people. We're still here. We've not launched our careers from. But I go back to 2017, which was, this time of year, Leeds go to Cas, get hammered. The Super League is not won or lost at this point of the year, so the Saints losing to Leeds on Friday
makes no difference.
Exactly.
And the one thing we should say is that there was some spectator behaviour which was picked up by the Sky cameras, and Brian Carney talked about Rowan Smith's zen for not getting involved. A couple of Saints fans really having a go, and you could hear it while Aidan Caesar was being interviewed. What's the point? You've lost the game. You may feel there's a sense of injustice on your side of the way you've just won the World Club Challenge. You've won 4 grand finals in a row. You're favourites to win a 5th. You've got the best young players in the league. It's March. Teams lose. You do have to get over it.
At least they didn't lose 7-0 like Man United yesterday. At least they weren't.
Or 8-0 like Wakefield.
Yeah, I mean, dear me. The Wakefield pitch remains unbeaten, though. That's the good news.
I think I don't know if you want to start with the Leeds match this week.
Well, we may as well, because we're talking about St Helens and how the James Roby piece in The Guardian. Wonderful. And I hope loads of people...
Donald McRae is an exceptional interviewer, and he does James Roby justice with that.
I hope loads of people who didn't know James Roby before read that, and not that they'll necessarily become fans of Rugby League, but just understand what he's been through. And he says in the piece he doesn't regret anything or begrudge the game that he may have health issues later on, because he's fully aware that's what he had to do to be what he is. But great piece. If you've not read it, it's up for free. Just go
it's a brilliant feature by a superb writer on a wonderful subject.
And now Leeds. Who are... Where are you in the league? Oh, Leeds above us now. That's not good, is it? What happened? Because I was at work, so I saw the score ticking over. Sounded a very entertaining game. Aidan Caesar, who was
vilified,
pilloried for making, was it 4 metres the week before or something?
Made 74 this week.
There you go. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. But there he is. Pops over the drop. He didn't pop over the drop. Well, it was Blake Austin, but you know what I mean.
I think Leeds made a decision clearly tactically, that they were going to try and run St Helens around. It's something that Leeds do, quite well, particularly now they've got Nene MacDonald in the centres. That's given them a slightly different direction. It'll increase again as and when they get Harry Newman back on the field. But Leeds decided to play expansive rugby, and it worked. The Saints had 2 players sin-binned and 1 sent off, all for late attacks on a player, which I just think it's a timing issue because of fatigue. So the fact again that they were in the game with a minute to go, having spent 60 minutes effectively with a player down, and Hurrell's sending off led to the penalty that gave Leeds the position for the drop well, but there was only a minute to go. But no, if you look at every team over 3 games rather than 1 game, rather than get hysterical over 1 game, Leeds have gradually got progressively better this season. So the second half against Warrington, they were better than they had been in the first half. The game against Hull, they were better than they had played against Warrington. Made a lot of opportunities but couldn't capitalise on enough of them to win. Game against St Helens, they've been better than they were against Hull. Rowan Smith could not understand the reaction to those first 2 results. He comes from clearly coaching in something like the Queensland Cup League where you don't get that degree of scrutiny. But he couldn't believe that, just because you don't start the season the way he hopes to end the season, a very Leeds trait, exactly what he did last year. Why there was all this hysteria surrounding their initial 2 defeats. I think the second team we need to pay credit to in what we've seen so far this season is Catalan, because I think they've done it really tough in terms of getting players back after the World Cup, and to be joint top of the league with Warrington with 3 victories is exceptional. But again, you look at each team's performances. The week before against Leeds, people said, Catalan might struggle a bit this year because they've only just beaten Leeds. Like, no, you cannot look at 1 game in isolation this early in the season. And after we've had the snowfall we've been promised this week, and the clocks have gone forward and we start moving into April, the grounds will be different, teams will play differently. Some teams will benefit from that. Others will be found out for perhaps not being able to plough through the ground as much as they do at the moment. So everything will change. Don't get carried away on the back of 1 result.
Well, that's not going to sell any podcasts or people clicking online, is it? Saying,
there's no clickbait there.
No, saying, no, don't worry, everything will be all right in the end. Bobby McFerrin, can we get him in the grand final? Can we get him to do the grand final at the tournament? I mean, he's only got 1 song, but, still it's a good one. One for the younger listener there. Yeah, Catalans 38 points to 6 against Hull. I mean, that's not that you don't expect Catalans to win at home, but that's a big scoreline against Hull, who we expect to be improving this year.
I think the thing about Catalan that's encouraging is that because they've played a lot more young French players at the start of this season, and actually they've stood up to the test, which is great. We're going to get on Thursday the grading criteria revealed. We might hear a little bit more about what IMG were talking about with regard to French clubs when they gave us their briefing 3/4 of the way through last year and said there might be a quota applied. Steve McNamara is aware that might be an issue. He's going to fight it, but he's clearly showing that there are some young French players. Hull, again, you can't read too much into the way they've started the season, because their first 2 their second and third game have been on 5-day turnarounds. One with a turnaround to go to France and come back, because Catalan had to play on a Friday night because they're playing on Thursday this week. So again, you would think that first half against Castleford at home in week 1, Hull looked great. The character that they showed to beat Leeds when they'd gone behind with 9 minutes to go, that's a positive. Travelling over to France with a very short turnaround and getting whooped and sent home with your tail between your legs, it's not going to determine their season.
Afternoon, Carston. He's watching. He's always watching. And Tom Johnston scored again. He's good now.
Is that 5 tries he's got in 3 games? I'm just pleased for him, because I think we said when he went there that what we hope is that he'll get the opportunity to show what he can do, and that he won't be hampered by injury. And if he can, then he's putting himself in position where, when England pick their team to play France in April, and they have to start bringing some new talent in, and they have to start experimenting and looking a little bit towards 2025, Tom Johnston's exactly the type of player who should be getting his first England cap.
Sean Wayne on the phone to Mickey McAlorum asking who he thinks is good in the Catalan side. I do like the idea that, and I don't know how you go through a process of picking who your international coach is. I'm just some bloke on the internet, but I like the fact we asked the players and they said, yeah, he's all right, that Sean Wayne. Yeah.
Did they ask the players who Sean Wayne didn't pick?
Mickey McAlorum, do you think we should have Sean Wayne as the England coach? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. He might not have said that. He might not like him. I don't know. But
But there's going to have to be change because, again, with the greatest respect to Mickey McIlroy and his long and distinguished career, I would be very, very surprised if he is in a position to be playing for England into 2025.
If he is, something's gone wrong. And
Yeah.
that's not on him. That's on everyone else. Get better, everyone.
I think the good thing about the appointment is it is to the next World Cup. You know, there would have been no merit in saying, "Oh, we'll just extend your contract for a year." I think, Sean Wayne has now been given the licence to say, build on the heartbreak of losing in a semi-final. But you do need, when you look at your squad, you are going to need to probably change your captain. There's people like Chris Hill are not going to be playing in the next World Cup at the age of 41. So you're going to have to change the way that you play. And the players that you pick, in the knowledge that you had suffered heartbreak against Samoa, so you've got now licence to do that over the next 3 years. The fixtures will come through. There is still a delay while the collective bargaining agreement is formally signed off, which could be this week in the NRL. Everybody knows that as soon as it is, there are already fixtures penciled in.
We know what it's going to be.
But you cannot announce it formally because the players still have to be released by their clubs, and the clubs are not going to release their players until it's part of the collective bargaining agreement. But they will. It's possible that Tonga will play Samoa as a warm-up game in the Southern Hemisphere and then fly over here and play a 3-match test series, which has never happened before, against England. It ticks the boxes for England because they're playing an opponent they would likely face in a semi-final of a World Cup. There are enough Tongan players over here to ensure that it's not solely down to the NRL clubs to release everybody who's coming. Christian Wolff will be able to come because this year he's only the assistant at the Dolphins, and what a fantastic win they had this weekend. Who is this Wayne Bennett chap? So he'll be able to come over with the NRL contingent. It all fits. I think we'll be able to play at grounds where we can get a significant attendance. That it might not be the biggest grounds in the world, but you could take a test against Tonga to Newcastle, and if you can market it correctly, almost get a sellout for that, and that's building on the World Cup.
Who doesn't want to see Tonga?
Well, I do, can't wait. And the fact that we didn't play them in this World Cup, but people are still talking about the semi-final in 2017. That's what we want.
This is the opportunity, and people are realising this now in the Southern Hemisphere, that the hearts and minds of rugby in the Pacific Islands it's swinging one way.
Yes,
thanks to the NRL and all money there, which is good.
Yes, and having, as we did, talk to Samoans and Tongans, that Papua New Guineans, they are desperate to play more games for their nation, and when you see them do their war cries or cultural dances, however it's appropriate to refer to them these days, you can see how much it means to them and why they would want to do it, and why should we prevent them from doing it? And they'll given the opportunity, they will come.
I've got the European Championship. Have England tweeted about that yet?
No.
with our Knights-like squad. Maybe Mickey might complain that.
Yeah. Well, it's open to everyone. Yeah. We were told.
Who needs a ban sorting out soon? Did Lee do any short kickoffs on Friday?
Yes.
Right, and they still didn't have a permanent captain.
No.
So that's all good again now.
That's fine.
I see a check because you can't work out, because in the week one it was rubbish, but now it's obviously good again. And obviously, who are good again are Warrington.
Yes.
It is their year. Congratulations to Warrington.
Well, it is after 3 games, as it was last year.
They were good because they came from 20 points to 6 at half time, when you all thought, it's not there yet. But now
I think, again, you can look at now over 3 games, you can take a view and say every one of their victories have been a little bit different, which is what Darryl Powell and his staff would want. So in the first one, they were clearly primed to start the season with a bang. They're on telly, they're at home, they need to reconvince their own fans more than anyone else that they are the real deal. And the first half against Leeds, they're impeccable. 100% completions, no mistakes, 30-0, couldn't have been a better start. That's, you then go to Huddersfield, who are going to be up there, everybody is saying, towards the end of the season, and you defend magnificently. It's not a great game in terms of free-flowing rugby, but Huddersfield scored 2 late tries. It is their first game of the season. They're not quite as match prepared as Warrington. But as Darryl Powell pointed out, there were 4 or 5 sets on their own line that they defended. They weren't doing that last year. Last year they were paper thin on their own line. And they came away with the victory. And then they're at home to Salford. The first game that they're probably expected to win, with the greatest respect to Salford, but they've had a big win against Leeds at home. The supporters are turning up going, right, OK, we'll have another one. And they're 20 points to 6 down at half-time. And looking in danger of the good work of the first 2 weeks being thrown out the window. But then they find a way to score 30 unanswered points. It can only be good. And yes, they do look different. The feel around the place is different. What they're saying is different. The team that Darryl's assembled are playing a Darryl way. They've got people like Sam Cassiano to come off the bench who can change matches, which they didn't really have last year. There's a seeming buy-in as well. The one player for me who hasn't had enough praise is Josh Drinkwater, because I think if you've got all of these component parts, somebody's got to knit them together. So he's freeing up George Williams to play like he played for England, and George has been man of the match in 2 out of the 3 games for Warrington. But Drinkwater's the organiser. Williams can see and do the things like his try off the scrum. And they've got a big set of forwards, but those forwards need marshalling around, and they also need to play in the right part of the field. And Drinkwater's kicking game, if you're coming off your own line and you're being smashed by 2 props rotated by another 2 props with another 2 that haven't even played yet, Warrington are going to be difficult to beat if they can maintain it throughout summer, which I think they will.
Warrington Catalans Grand Final this week. Next week could be something else.
Well, it would be good if there was a new name on the trophy, but that's purely, again, paying due credit and respect to St Helens. But the sport would do no harm to have a different name on the trophy this year of all years, when IMG are trying to reimagine us.
Are they going to tell us what they reimagine the Challenge Cup as this week, or is that later on? Not that it really matters what it's going to be next year now.
Well, you were at the season launch and the IMG briefing.
I asked the question and everything. I thought I'd justify myself, but I don't think I was supposed to be there, but I was kind of tagging along.
And I think, as written in the current issue of Forty20, there was a feeling of being underwhelmed when we'd had that briefing, because we were told by IMG it's the end of promotion relegation, it's the end of the Magic Weekend, it's the end of loot fixtures, it's licensing, it's new event. And here we were being told, well, we still haven't quite proposed the grading, and then it's got to be approved, and there'll be some consultation, and then we've got some ideas about what the cup would be, and you're going, is it happening or isn't it happening? And I think that's the problem, that a lot has been promised, but little has been delivered, and we still seem to be in that hole where governance is going to determine what is delivered rather than benevolent dictatorship, as it should be, as it needs to be at the moment, to move it up a level. And I think it's the same with wheelchair. The women's game looks settled, and we know what's happening there. But again, that springboard we got from the World Cup, if you were looking at it from the outside, looks as though it hasn't yet been capitalised on, and we're already into this season, and at the end of this season we're negotiating with broadcast companies.
We're going to jump around things because that's the way my brain's working today. But I've got the fixture list, I've got the results in front of me, so it's not as if we can't go back and say, oh, Wakefield lost again.
Well, Wakefield didn't score again, that would be the worry.
Isn't it? I think where we need IMG's help is content creation. Super League got a podcast, brilliant, right? It's on YouTube and whatever. And they have those occasional things where they'll do a story with a player, but we need more of that stuff. We need more of, I work for a bookmaker, and it's Cheltenham next week, and they've done these great videos, and I'm not saying this because I work for the company, where they've got Anthony McCoy and Barry Geraghty, 2 top jockeys, talking through great races they've done in the past, and won or lost and whatever. We need that kind of, here's the player, not in a joking way, they're explaining what's happened and why it happened, and it's kind of what John Wells does with the touchscreen and drags Cameron Smith out of the change rooms to stand there on a Friday night. But we need more of that in-depth stuff where we can explain to people, here's that intercept try. I want to hear from Kensio how did he keep hold of the ball and then pass it onwards and then Salford score a great try. I want to see more of that kind of stuff where we explain to people what's happening on the pitch.
But also, it's simple things like not having 5 games scheduled for on Friday. Because again, all you are doing is competing against yourself. If you're not a rugby league fan, then you will ignore 4 of the games that were on Friday night because you'll be watching Leeds at St Helens, you'll be enjoying it because it's close and exciting and controversial, and then you'll tune out. And it's not enough just having the highlights of the other. So we then have Saturday and Sunday without any rugby league at Super League level, and you just think that's where you miss your own opportunities.
There's no R-League game this week, was there? So again, we have something. I know Cornwall didn't play, so that obviously rules them out.
Well, is that happening this time? Are all of their games being featured?
They've been on twice, haven't they?
But that's Challenge Cup was one of them, wasn't it? And the other one was a Midlands game. So
again, that's hit and miss. If you're going to do it every week or don't, because we can moan at Channel 4, and well, it's not money at Channel 4. It's their deal they have is that they don't have a game on every week. That's fine. That's the deal. But if we have the ability to have a game on every week, then we should have a game on every week, because you could have picked any number of how many games did we have in the Championship last week? Full card of fixtures, 4 games in League One. Again, it doesn't matter which game you're picking. If it turns into a blowout, it turns into a blowout. But have a game on. Put some more games on the telly for people to watch.
Well, I just think it's Catalan are top of the league, and nobody's really seen a minute of live action of any of their games because, but we know that they can be streamed because the highlights are there straight after the main game on a Friday night. So the balance isn't quite right, and you're right that in terms of how the sport is going to look and be broadcasting the stories we're going to be able to tell of it. I mean, something else that I noticed in the first 2 weeks, I don't know if it's been cured in the third, the stats are not up quickly enough. We've mentioned it before that the stories often come from the stats. If somebody's made 74 tackles, we don't need to know about it 3 days later. We need to know about it there and then. If somebody has scored 5 tries in 6 games, you need to be able to have a compilation of their tries or whatever it might be. And not enough people are talking about Liam Marshall, who started the season, I think, with 8 in the first 3 games. We know about it because we follow that sort of stuff, but that's where social media and the game itself has to be a little bit more savvy about what it's putting out there and to who and which audience it's trying to hook. And I'm not sure we are doing that. There's a piece in the Next magazine that we just subbed about how do you get young people involved, and it's really difficult when you can't actually physically take them to a game because it's either on a Thursday night or a Friday night at 8 o'clock. That immediately rules out all the kids because they're going to go to school. What if every club does it within a certain area, all playing at the same time or kicking off on a school night? Where do you get your future young supporters from?
I've written about this, but you haven't seen this yet because I've not sent it in. But what I noticed from watching Rugby League for the first couple of weeks of the season was not actually anything to do with Rugby League. It was what other sports are doing. And on Sky, because they are our main source of income and everything, they had a very, I'd say it's youth oriented. I'm 42, so anything below 30 is the youth.
To me, it's youth.
The youth. I mean, I'm on TikTok, but I'm not on TikTok. But it's that kind of TikTok, Snapchat kind of audience. But Sky are providing for the Women's Super League football. They've got a program they call a Snapchat program, which has 2 guests, and they get the players on and they talk through goals, and they talk in a language that I don't understand because I am old. But you can tell it's well produced and it works for the audience that it's intended for. And the build up to the netball, they have a half an hour program on before a live match, which is definitely not what we do for Super League with here's John Wilkin wandering around and here's Jenna and whatever with the news. That's aimed at us, but it's not aimed at the new audience that we need to find. And we may as well try and find that audience. And it's interesting that Sky are doing it with netball and women's football and not with Super League. And I don't know, I'm not criticising Sky for that, but it would be interesting to see if they could try something like that, or someone would try something like that, where we can try and find new audiences in new ways. Because at the moment, it's trying to write about a TV column about rugby when it's just the same. Channel 4's coverage was revolutionary, the fact that it was just basic. And
Relaxed
Sky have now basic.
And informal.
And the big difference between the 2 channels is still, and all the channels, is still the fact that on Channel 4 they have 1 commentator and 1 summariser, and it works.
And always has.
Carson says, will I make a shirt with PRK on the front to honour the great leader? I mean, the shirts, I need to get in touch with the manufacturer, because the the shirts have been designed. The pylon shirts are ready.
Well, licensing is out on Thursday.
Yeah,
you need to be in a position to say merchandise available.
We need to edit that video again. I mean, we don't want to be like New York and just pretend we exist and don't.
Whatever happened to the Canadian Cooperative?
I don't know.
We must ring our friend Sandy and ask her how it's going.
Is Danica involved in that as well?
And Stevie Ward.
Yeah, where are they?
What's happened?
I don't know. She's off all over the place. She's got awards and everything. She remembers us. Yeah. We moved on now. Just trying to infiltrate the wheelchair game now. Did you see the fixtures came out last week? No, because no one saw it. Hull Kingston Rovers versus Lee Leopards. Lee have won a match. Josh Charnley at the end. I thought, I was walking back after work and I saw that I was checking the scores. Oh, wait for the floor. So I found it. Oh, Lee have won. And then I realised, no point getting upset because you can't change any of these things. They just happen.
I think that's a big result for Lee.
It's a big result.
Because as the season progresses towards Easter, those teams who've got points on the board early will have less pressure. I mean, it's a very obvious thing to say, but particularly down at the bottom. Now, Castleford have been a little bit dragged into that now, having not won a game for the first three. So each time they play, the pressure is ramped up. Wakefield are now already 2 points behind Lee, and it could come down to 2 points at the end of the season as to who gets relegated and who doesn't. That is a big result for Lee. On the back of Hull KR, had they won, would have had their best ever start to a Super League season. I think the signs were good. They beat Wigan again convincingly, which was a surprise on the opening day. Backed that up with another victory, and then going back home against a team that had flown. We talk about short turnaround times. Lee had been in Perpignan the week before and had a terrible journey back, apparently delayed, had to stay there an extra night, but had enough professionalism about them to get the job done at a ground where it isn't going to be easy to win this year. That is a really big result for Lee, and again, winning it with virtually the last play of the game tells you something about the character of the squad. Mr. Beaumont and Leto travelling round over the weekend to enthuse the travelling public because St Helens are in town this week.
Got to pow on.
Then, I think they are going about things the right way. And I think we said when we discussed about the prospects of each team this year, why perhaps Lee might finish above Wakefield, that yes, it would come down to injuries and squad depth, but also Adrian Lamb coached the team to within a drop goal attempt of winning a grand final. He knows what it takes throughout a Super League season to have a team ready when they need to get a result. Mark Applegarth is a novice who hasn't encountered that, and it may well be that Lamb's experience is the difference between the two teams.
They play each other 3 times, don't they? Because they've got the Magic game as well.
So again, getting you 2 points in now is big.
Asking all the big questions on Twitter today because York Valkyrie, which I still can't spell, have announced their squad numbers. They've got 3 lives in the squad. So I asked, is there any other team that's got more the same first name player? Wigan's academy team has got 5 Emmas, says Rachel. So
excellent. Thank you, Rachel.
Wigan winning things. Ian Lenigan, he thinks Leeds shouldn't be paying players. Do people really think that players are getting paid loads of money, don't they? And even though I keep asking these players just to confirm it, so get them you're not getting paid loads of money, are you? No.
They're getting paid to cover their well. In fact, they get paid nothing if they lose. It's performance-related bonuses.
Why do people think?
The money isn't there, but it's a gesture in the right direction, and it shows that a club is being progressive in how they view the women's game. So Leeds, York, Wigan deserve a huge amount of credit. If Ian Lanigan objects to it, why is he one of the clubs that's paying expenses?
Are they paying? I mean, I didn't read the story properly, did I?
Yeah, I think.
So.
Well, I don't know if it said it in the story, but they are.
But you could easily make the argument that because this is the strange way that sport is. Well, there'll be plenty of people in the men's game who don't deserve what they get paid. For performance-related
as we said post-World Cup, that paying the women in itself is not going to bridge the gap between the NRLW and Super League women. But it might attract some more people to want to play the game, and you've got to make sure, again, that it isn't huge transfer fees. I think, we interviewed Amy Staveley last week, And again, another big transfer in terms of an international change in clubs, the same way that Amy Hardcastle did, which, whatever the headlines might say about transferred, it wasn't. It was the player themselves ringing up and arranging their own move. It's nothing to do with money.
So, no one's getting rich.
Not yet.
As I said last night, on the TV games, the people on the panel will get paid more than the players. I'm pretty sure of that.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty
Absolutely.
sure of that.
Absolutely.
Paddy says, do you think anyone stops Fev this season? Well, Bradford obviously tonight. I mean, obviously the Bulls after that big win against Toulouse.
Fev's a really interesting story because I think until probably Lee Radford's sacking by mutual consent, which I still haven't worked out
not on the telly.
The big story that got missed by a lot of people were the comments of Mark Campbell at Featherstone.
Don't go on Facebook.
Where he's already saying, I need more support from the fans, and they shouldn't go drinking in the railway pub. They should be coming to the ground and supporting what we do. That, to me, again, without the benefit of knowing all of the details, is already an indication that Featherstone are in that position where it's... What's another word for shit? It's shit or bust, isn't it, this year? And the thing is that you cannot come out after 3 games where you've employed a big coaching team in terms of you've not only got Sean Long, you've got Leon Price, you've now brought in Martin Gleeson. There's a huge cost to that. You're playing at brilliantly attractive rugby. You're scoring a lot of points, which is exactly what you would expect from a Sean Long coach team. You're blowing teams away in the early part of the season, and then the guy who's putting in all the money says, "I can't really afford to do this." So I think we got to watch what's happening behind the scenes at Featherstone more than what's happening on the field. They may not be stopped. I think they won't go through the season unbeaten. But my bigger concern, if I was a Featherstone fan, would be those comments from their chairman aimed at them, saying they have to support them more.
Don't post on social media, even if you're on Facebook and it's a closed group or whatever, because it'll get out.
But that would be a concern if I was a Featherstone fan, more than the way the team's playing at the moment.
Well, it's been a great weekend in the WF postcode area. Well, Dewsbury won. Batley nearly won, but they didn't. But Castleford were nilled by Wigan, 36-0.
Again,
Liam Marshall with nearly 4 tries for Liam Marshall.
But for a referee.
They're trying to sign Tom Grant this morning, but the RFL refused that approach.
Castleford's best defender, Tom Grant. Again, Castleford's falling away in the second half would have been the issue. Was it 4-0 at half time?
6-0 it says here, so it's close enough.
So again, to concede 30 unanswered points in 40 minutes at home hints at what the issues might be at Castleford. But Wigan needed to hit back after their shock first round defeat at Hull KR. And I say shock with the greatest respect to Hull KR because everybody was talking up, Wigan are playing with that burning desire to right the wrong of getting knocked out in the playoffs last year, and hasn't been too much change in the squad. The key men are still there, even though they've lost John Bateman, and Matty Pete's a year more experience as a coach, and they didn't play well at Hull KR as well as Rovers did play. But then they come back and put 60 on Wakefield and 36 on Cass and concede 1 try. No tries in both of those games. You can't ask for much more than that. It'd be interesting because they play Catalan this week, which again, I don't think they will be facing a full strength Dragons team, but a Dragons team that are absolutely full of confidence, top of the league. So that'll be a better test of where Wigan are at the moment. Liam Marshall on fire. Another England candidate, I'd say, for April.
So, Lee Radford, then, now we're talking about Castleford. This can't just be results, because we're 3 games into the season, and teams can start badly. It just happens. And the way the fixtures
they
fell...
did last year.
The way the fixtures fell, they go to Hull... Right, this is just on paper before anything's played. So, they go to Hull, toss of a coin. I think I tipped Castleford, Hull won. Right. St Helens at home. Forget the fact they've come back from Australia. You still go with St Helens. They're the champions. You're going to tip Saints in every game they play, pretty much, because they should win every game on paper. It's not played on paper. Wigan. They're better than Cass, so Wigan are going to win. So it's nothing to do with results. No. Performance, I don't know, because I've not seen the game on Friday, although judging by some tweets, it sounds like as soon as Wigan scored, that was it. Cass just... Collapsed, a bit like Man United on Sunday.
Can't mention that enough, to be honest.
No, I was sat in the studio and I'm like, what is going on here? I was annoyed because I backburst him to score. But this has got to come down to the Joe Westerman thing, hasn't it?
I think that's indicative
of
something. Yeah, I don't think it's just the Westerman thing. I think the Westerman thing is an indication that... I think there are parallels between what Cass might go through this year and what Warrington did last year. If you know that the 14 of your players are off contracts at the end of the season, it's very hard to get a cohesive group together, all pushing in the right direction. And Darryl Powell found that. He needed to get rid of some players earlier because he felt they were a negative influence. He also knew that he wasn't going to be able to do a hell of a lot with some of the players that he knew he was going to release, and they knew they were signing for other clubs. Kyle Amor said it, didn't he, when he was on one of his very many media appearances, that the atmosphere when he joined on loan was a little bit toxic. I think the same is true at Cass, and whilst that may or may not come under Lee Radford's control because he's involved in that situation, it might be the board deciding who they do want, who they don't want, who they're bringing in, who they're not bringing in, what options their coach is going to have, or whether they're going to tell them what they're going to have. All of that has clearly been going on throughout the off-season, and it's manifested itself in their first three performances, the Westerman issue and the fact that Radford's not there. I think the spotlight falls on the board for me.
Regardless of the second part of the Westerman issue, the first part is that he was out drinking for...
That's the first thing.
That's the main
That's
the main
a culture thing, isn't it?
That's the main thing.
The culture at a club. I think
he played the first game after that.
Well, I think you're right to point out that there are two issues here. One is, what is any player doing out a week before the season? You know, you've worked 7-8 weeks in pre-season to get yourself to peak condition. Every club does that. You've done all the hard S&C stuff. But a week before you're going to go out, you're on a bender in Castleford. It's like, probably doesn't say too much about you. Then you almost try and sweep it under the carpet. Then you pick him the first week. His stats would indicate he was one of their best players in that first, but he's dropped the second week. There's something out of kilter there.
I think, and this is going to be one of those bizarre theories that I come up with, but this is where my brain was going this morning. I think as Brian Carney described us at the Super League launch, the Rugby League fourth estate led Lee Radford down a garden path in that press conference. Now, we were told before, the club's made a statement, blah, blah. But, because that's what journalists do, they ask questions about Joe Westerman. And he didn't play a straight bat.
No.
Just, in the way that when I was in the presser when Chris Chester was asked about Izzy Folau, who was going to come over and then the game got cancelled anyway. And he just said, I'm not going to say anything. And eventually he did say something, but he didn't say anything at the same time. As soon as Lee Radford started talking about Joe Westerman, the floodgates were open, and people and everyone on the Zoom call knows what Lee Radford's like and the way he speaks and the way he is. So they knew that if they asked the right questions, they would get the right response for them. And if you ask about something and his response is he's mental.
Yeah, I think Lee misread the room and, given his time again, was trying to be Lee. But there are some issues where you can't make a flippant remark, and what we shouldn't forget, and I think we mentioned that you can't forget, is that there are victims in this, and the club has a duty of responsibility to the people that are affected by it, particularly with the way they make their comments, and the next day to say, there's been a disciplinary hearing and we've looked at it and we fined them a huge amount, and we're not going to tell you what it is, and it's alcohol related, and so we're going to look at that as well. It's like, that's not enough. You haven't dealt with it. You haven't paid due respect to the people that are going to get hurt by all of this. I think there is... It's hard to say because we're looking at it from the outside in rather than the inside out, but there seems to be nobody taking a leadership role at Castleford outside of the playing area. Say, well, what direction is this club going in? I don't know about you, but Wakefield are having something built. There is an edifice there that says, we've said a lot that we're going to do something, we're now doing something. Castleford, you can have as many planning permissions as you like. Have you got the finance? Because we've seen 3 or 4 different schemes, and none of them are nearer to actually coming to fruition today than they were when they're on a drawing board, which is great, but they're on a drawing board.
But even if you take Wakefield on the pitch this season, obviously...
Well, don't mention the Wakefield pitch.
No, on the field, on the court. Even though they haven't won a game this season so far, and haven't scored in the last 2 games, which is extremely concerning. We'll come to them on the pitch in a moment in that sense. But you could see from when Mark Applegarth's appointed, from the signings made, from the players being brought up from the academy and whatever, you can have an assumption from the outside of where Wakefield are going this year and how they're
cutting their cloth.
So you have that in your mind. You could be completely wrong. But the way things are going so far, you might be right. But at least you have an idea of where things are going.
And John Minards is the sort of chairman now who is telling the fans. Now, they might not like everything they hear, but he is saying, we want to be a Grade A licence. Well, part of that is you are now putting in place some facilities that a Grade A, I don't think there will be a Grade A, club would need. So you can see that direction of travel. I've not heard a statement from someone at Cass to say, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going about it, this is what we're building, this is why we're a better club now than we were last year. I would, if I was a Cass fan at the moment, I would just have a concern about the way it's looking from the outside.
Wakefield might have been lucky and unlucky at the same time in terms of timing in knocking down the stand and building the new one and the other groundworks going on, in so much as that, from what I understand, the plans were more not details the wrong word, but would have had more features, but because of the global economic situation, and we can't get any tomatoes, then it's not going to be as lavish as it was.
It's not going to be as bells and whistles as they would have wanted.
But it's still going to be better than
well, they are investing £2 million of council money. It will be a better facility because of that.
Thanks to Lee Radford Airport, thank you.
Exactly. So, whereas Cass seem a bit directionless at the moment, and we're still going to a ground that is not fit for purpose.
Actually, when Wakefield's fit for purpose, it's going to be amazing. I can't believe it. Can't believe it. Until I'm sat in it. I've said this all along.
But you can see it. It's happening.
Yeah, but I remember Halifax. I'm joking.
Has that end been done yet?
I think it has. I think it was done for the World Cup, wasn't it? All those years ago. Remember the World Cup? Not this one, the last one. 43 Moi Moi and all that. Have we talked about the game? Oh, we haven't talked about Wakefield. Lost 8-0 to Huddersfield. Oh, we're still about the game now.
The concern would be that they haven't scored, but the bigger concern, I think, is that they're picking up injuries. And I believe we said in our season previews that whilst no club has the same sort of squad depth that maybe a St Helens do, and maybe just St Helens, there are certain clubs that if you've got 2 or 3 key injuries, it would hit them really badly. And I think Wakefield are now up to 4.
And the Resi's got hammered by Huddersfield as well, so...
And that would be the concern going into the next few weeks. Is not, the inexperience of their coach, although they do have James Ford there also on the coach staff. It's just, if you don't have the cattle out on the field, you can't expect the results.
Going to be world champions on Friday, because we're going to beat Leeds.
Yeah, that's true. That's the way it works. Winner stays on.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep an eye on that throughout the season. Leeds have currently got 3 of them. PDRL.
Who played Colostomy UK on yesterday, and without in any way joking about this, that is one of the most uplifting parts of our sport at the moment. That you can see a Colostomy UK team playing a PDRL team in a meaningful game at Hunslet before they played their League One match, and everybody gets so much out of that. I think that was one of the heartening results of the weekend, which I don't know if anybody picked up on, but Leeds PDRL were, current grand final champions beat Colostomy UK up the Perps. I'm
intrigued by the kind of trickle of information of the launch of the wheelchair fixtures last week. Trickle, probably not the word, drip out of a tap. One drip out of a tap, which you might have missed. I only saw the fact the fixtures were out when I saw Leeds tweets. But that there's going to be some kind of magic stroke inclusion stroke wheelchair PDRL LDRL all combined events going on.
I don't know how they are. I don't know how that's going to work, because clearly PDRL and LDRL can't play indoors because they play degrees of contact. But yes, there's going to be 4 magic weekends, one of which will be in Newcastle at the same time as the men's running magic weekend. And at those festivals, one in Birmingham, one in Medway, one in London and one in Newcastle, there are going to be elements of PDRL and LDRL. So, fantastic.
I'm still trying to come up with that idea of how we can have an all-star game at the end of the season involving every single facet of rugby league. I'm not sure how it works yet.
Well, Jamie Shaw's testimonial
in a wheelchair
was full of wheelchair internationals and running players on playing a wheelchair game, which could be the way ahead.
I watched the Tom Halliwell try a couple of times last week because it came up on the side of the BBC website because it's just there constantly. I forgot to ask Rob Hawkins, what was he thinking when he passed the ball? So he passes it and then what a mark! It was great. The awards were great, and I'm
deserved more publicity.
Yeah, I'm not I don't buy into the inspiration stuff, as we know on this programme. I'm very much. We wouldn't talk about something if it was crap, because there's no point. And it's all about the sport itself, which is why we end up asking Sam Bashara. So can you put your golden boot on? Can you wear it? That's only because someone asked at the table and said it was the wrong boot, but apparently you can fit it on, but it's heavy. And if he's not doing the entertainment, by the way, the grand final or the Challenge Cup final, we should get Ken Bruce, because everyone loves Ken Bruce.
Yeah.
We'll find a few quid for Ken Bruce.
All we need is an interactive way of doing
Popmaster.
Popmaster at Old Trafford, and we've cracked it.
There you go. Everyone loves Ken Bruce. I've never listened.
I have listened to Popmaster, but not the rest of the programme.
No. It's Radio 2 music, isn't it? Come on now.
Yeah, but that's my age, isn't it?
No, not anymore. I'm Radio 2 age now. I got listen to Vernon.
Oh, I've moved on to Greatest Hits then.
Boom Radio. That's where you are, Phil. Yeah, get Ken Bruce in and Sam Bashara and everyone. But yeah, the wheelchair awards were great. It was great that the sponsors were there and they did some stuff, because I saw it on their various outlets. Yeah, that's what it was. I felt really guilty for not interviewing Rob Hawkins because he won the Player of the Year, and I said to him afterwards, I spoke to you 2 weeks ago and I've got nothing new to ask you.
Well, the season hasn't started yet.
So I would speak to you, and now in hindsight I'm thinking, I should have just, but it would have just have been, I don't know, but it was, a great night was had by all, I think.
And it's always good to fate World Cup winners.
Yeah, the World Cup was there.
And the fixtures are now out,
yeah.
So we've got much more of an idea of what's happening when. There's, I think, some meetings planned over the next few weeks about how we capitalise on what we've got. I think there are some broadcasting outlets interested in doing a little bit more. There's some documentaries being made, apparently. Don't know when they're due to come out, but that's great as well. It's the low-hanging fruit of the sport at the moment.
I still need to work on the one I was going to do, but I never got around to doing it. But never mind, I'll get that done, because it doesn't. It's not time specific. With everything on this channel, we just do it whenever we want. Special programme on Wednesday, by the way, for International Women's Day. Who could be our guest? I don't know. Find out on Wednesday. Probably recorded it. In the Championship, Barrow and Newcastle drew 18-all. First point of the season for Barrow. Halifax beat Batley, coming from behind in that one. Yeah, 20
which
points
again,
to 16.
Batley have got off to an uncharacteristic start to the season over their previous two campaigns, and will be looking to pick up some points quite quickly. I think Craig Lingard knows exactly what he's dealing with, in the fact that he lost a couple of his best players over the close season, but his side haven't knitted together the way he would want them to over the first 4 rounds just quite yet.
I mean, topsy-turvy week. Halifax losing at Widnes and then beating Batley, and Widnes getting absolutely battered at Sheffield. I mean, I say that it's almost the same score they beat Halifax by, so I should say Halifax got battered by Widnes as well. But
I think Sheffield have been the surprise so far. I think we expected Bradford to be having a better year this year than they did last year, but Sheffield have I think put some cards on the table of, if we are going down the road of grading, and we can see where there's a pathway for us to be a club again nearer the Super League than not. We'll do some things off the field, but we'll also recruit so that we are competitive on the field, and I think they've started the season really well, haven't they?
London, I thought were going to win at Keighley. It's only a half. There's been a few of these teams leading at half time but not winning, and London, another one of those. Keighley with a great second half.
Keighley have started their championship life in good form, so well done to them. Swinton had started well, but a bit of a setback against York this week.
A great performance from Andrew Henderson's men, 40-0 away from home. I think they are Wigan or someone, I don't know. And Toulouse beat Whitehaven 72-10.
Which again, on the back of being beaten by Bradford the week before, is exactly the kind of result that Toulouse needed. But they are going to be virtually invincible at home, I think. Part-time teams travelling to France at short notice on scheduled flights. It's never going to work.
I assume the Whitehaven people enjoyed their trip. Not the result, but, just enjoyed their time in France.
It's very hard not to enjoy yourself when you go to the south of France. The 80 minutes you go for is the least important thing while you're over there, which is exactly what a Rugby League experience should be.
In the excitement of League One, which is now 2 weeks old, Dewsbury beat Midlands 50 points to 10. Hunslet beating North Wales 22-8.
Good result for Hunslet. Really good result.
North Wales 0 from 2 now, which they'd be one of the sides you'd expect would be perhaps challenging this year. Oldham beat the Scholars 62-18. And Doncaster won at Rochdale 20 points to 10.
Again, another good result for Doncaster. They beat Hunslet in week 1 and Rochdale now in week 2. That's two of the teams that they know that are going to be challenging for playoffs if they don't make automatic. So that's a statement of intent from Carl Hull's men. I suspect that's because he's now a columnist in a monthly magazine.
Have York women signed any more players while we've been on? I don't think so.
Not if they've announced their squad numbers. I doubt whether they would.
Leeds haven't signed in on Saints, haven't signed in with yet. What are you about Saints this year? What are you about Saints?
I don't know.
He says just predicting random things. I don't know when's the season launch for the women. I don't know.
Not from.
Must be soon.
Challenge Cup soon, isn't it? The group.
That comes after the first.
No, it comes after the first round of games. Yeah.
I'm trying to work out when they're going to launch.
Well, the first round of games is actually one game that is ahead of the first round of games.
Yeah, because I need to put that in my diary.
That's at Easter, isn't it?
I go, yes.
Yeah.
It's double header it.
Yeah.
Might go after the women's game. I don't see Leeds first. Huddersfield do it. Rivals round. They're great. Leeds and Huddersfield, they hate each other.
Well, I think that they were rivals in. They played each other in the Championship final in the 1910s a couple of times.
When what's his name? Wagstaff and all them.
Yeah. When
Huddersfield were good.
Yeah.
No, they're good again now. So there's no Huddersfield fans there watching, I don't think. Tonight it's Fez versus Bradford. We mentioned that earlier.
Be an interesting game. We'll see how far Bradford.
Peter Fox Derby.
Yeah.
That was it. I was going to when I was speaking to our mystery guest on Wednesday, I was going to describe Lindsay Anfield as almost a Peter Fox style players coach, because it does seem that players gravitate towards him. I was going to ask it in a sense by not saying a bit of a cult mentality, but but I'm trying to work out a different way.
Clearly, there is immense loyalty from her players to her, and I think again, we now look back at the migration of Castleford players to York. That was predominantly around they wanted to play for Lindsay. So
Thursday, Wigan Catalans.
Be a good game. Be a really good game. We'll know a little bit more about Catalan. Interesting that Artur Morga's nailed down the fullback spot in the early part of the season, even shifting Sam Tompkins to 6. That'll be interesting.
Friday, Huddersfield Castleford's the TV game.
Well, haven't they got the story they wanted now?
Yeah.
So I can't see that necessarily being the most entertaining match that we're going to get this weekend. But
Hull KR Warrington, that'll be good.
Again, Hull KR have to hit back.
Yeah.
Warrington each week will now reach a point where, is this the real deal? So if they can win at Hull KR, then not only have they gone one better than they did last season, but I think that's a bit of a marker game for Warrington.
Leeds Wakefield, which I don't know if I want to go to or not. I am really torn on this.
It's funny, this time last year, played in round 4, neither team had won a game.
Oh, it was terrible, wasn't it?
It was in the most awful game, and Leeds scraped a fortunate victory.
It was a dreadful game, that one, I remember.
It wasn't good.
I asked Willie Poaching afterwards about the fact that he played in some terrible Wakefield teams. I still don't know if I'm going to go to that or not. When do I have to tell Leeds if I want to come? I don't know.
Probably Thursday.
Yeah. And Lee St Helens with Tapau, not Marty Tapau. They've got the wrong one. They've got Carol Decker and the other people. Is it like the Four Tops where there's just one Four Top left and the others are just some random guitarist or something? I don't know. They're in all their hits. Oh, they did 2 hits. Sorry. Didn't Carol Decker
She's from Bradford.
Is she?
Mm.
Did she do the pre-match at the World Cup or something in '92 or '95? Someone will remember. This is just coming to my mind, so it might be in Stowey's captain's diary. That calendar.
I'm sure she might have done an evening at Bullmania, Todsall.
It's heart and soul, China in her hands, and then nothing. Saturday, it's Hull versus Salford, and the Challenge Cup.
Well, that'll be an interesting game, Hull and Salford, because again, Hull will want to prove that their difficult trip to Catalan was nothing other than that. But Salford now have a wound to lick as well. So, but I suspect that Salford will try and play their usual expansive, effusive brand of rugby and blow Hull away, because Hull want to keep it a little bit more up the middle. So that'll be an interesting contrast of styles.
Saturday in the Challenge Cup, Leigh Miners Rangers versus Rochdale Mayfield, London Broncos Whitehaven, Orrell St James versus Midlands, Siddle Sheffield Eagles, Stanley Newcastle, Westgate Common versus Hunslet Amateurs. One of those teams in Hunslet needs a name.
The ARL rather than the RL.
Another word. Yeah. I know Hunslet don't like being Hawks anymore, so Hunslet ARL need a word. West Warriors versus Widnes Vikings.
At Widnes,
which I can understand them doing.
Yeah, but it's a shame because I think it could have been a double header somewhere down in the south.
Barrow Swinton on Sunday, Batley Wasp Brow, Bradford York Acorn, Dewsbury Rams versus Rochdale Hornets, Doncaster Workington. It's fun. Feb versus Halifax on the Sportsman, and I can't blame them for picking that one because that's the first game I'd have picked.
Can I ask a question? Going back around in the Challenge Cup.
Challenge Cup, yeah.
Much was made of Rochdale Mayfield against Cornwall,
which we predicted they'd win. I'm sure we did. Or
and
Eastwood.
Positives from that game: 1,000 people turned up.
Yeah.
Negative: that is an appalling result for Cornwall.
And then they got battered by. Or did they get battered? Oh, they got. It was the week before they lost to Midlands, wasn't it?
When you think that is a semi-professional outfit playing a community-based team who aren't in the very top tier, who had a 10-hour round-trip bus journey to get there, and Cornwall couldn't produce a victory, you have to ask the question, what do we want from our expansion anymore? And are Cornwall going to go the way of so many other teams that just get plonked in a place and left, where there is no infrastructure around it to call on players, again an inexperienced coach, because Neil Kelly decided he was moving on at the end of last season. What do we want from Cornwall, and what are we giving them to enable us to get what we want from Cornwall? Because a result like that, which was brushed over, I mean, I know the BBC covered it on the Red Button, and I think Dave Woods a couple of times sneaked in as Rochdale rather than Rochdale Mayfield, which you would. But again, I don't think enough has been made of. If IMG is serious about what the sport's going to look like, if grading's going to come in, if we want to still expand the sport after 140 years of not doing it particularly well, what's going to be different? And if we do have Cornwall, and they do offer 1,000 fans, and they have got access to sponsors, and they did a deal the other day with an airline, didn't they? There aren't going to be too many other clubs that are going to be doing deals with airlines.
The last team that did an airline deal,
whatever happened to them? Yeah. Air Transat. What do we want? Because as a result, isolated, that should have been a Cornwall victory. It should have been a stepping stone to being in the next round of the Cup. It should have been the ability perhaps to get to maybe the third round of the Cup where they start getting a payday. I don't know. I think that was a really bad result for Cornwall. It was a team we want to see succeed.
Not that we can compare the integration of Redcliffe into the NRL with Cornwall into the pyramid.
But even Redcliffe have got 75 years behind them. And Wayne Bennett. And 37,000 people turned up. I knew a year before who they were playing and when they were coming in.
I think there are enough people in Brisbane who hate Brisbane Broncos to support another team. It's great. It's not like Springfield Borough.
No.
Hunslet versus Keighley. That's actual Hunslet, not amateur Hunslet.
Didn't they play each other last week? Or the week before?
Probably. There's a lot of same league games in this draw, which made it a bit. Oh, I wish they'd just get on with draws. And this is not a rugby league thing. It's a general sport thing. But just do the draw. I don't hear from 100 people. I don't care. Just do the draw. Satterwith versus North Wales. Losers aren't allowed to be called Crusaders anymore. And York Knights versus West Bowling. That is the Challenge Cup this week. Oh, Addison's on from Ontario. Up the Giants. # bring back the pack. Where are they? I thought they were coming back. Well, this is not a criticism.
No. What is happening in Rugby League in Canada?
The women win the World Cup. I saw them. Played still in the greatest game we've ever seen. But I don't know.
Take a while to get over that one.
We're never going to get over that one. Never.
Maria Graf playing in Australia?
In Australia, yeah. Trying to get some funding. Wait for all the English players to be announced to be playing in the NRLW, whatever that is. It's going to be exciting. Whomever goes over there.
There'll be a couple at least. Well, Rebecca Wilson's gone, hasn't she, from Wigan? But she's not gone to an NRLW club. She's gone to, is it Logan's? Georgia Wilson. What did I say?
Rebecca.
Well, I'm sure
probably got a lot of Rebecca.
She's got a sister called Rebecca. Yeah. No, Georgia.
It's one for the players who don't have any ties here, who can go off and bugger off for a couple of months.
There's absolutely no doubt that if Georgia comes back in 2 years, she will sign for a top level Women's Super League club. So enjoy the experience.
It's all very exciting. And then it's got to make the Australians good at wheelchair rugby league, and then we can sell that as a thing.
I think we'd like them to be, because if we can get an Ashes series of meaning, I think Jack.
Not that we'd ever tire of beating the French, because obviously
I think Jack Brown's going to have a say in that as well, being based over there and coaching the Queensland team. I think hopefully he'll never turn out in a green and gold shirt, but however, he is going to improve the standard of wheelchair rugby league over there. That is for sure.
It's exciting. It's exciting. The first 3 weeks of the men's Super League have been exciting. Everything's exciting. Everything's building up. Like the World Cup, we had the first few weeks of the men's, and then the wheelchair and the women's came in, and it was like the greatest thing we'd ever seen. And the walk front cover of Forty20 magazine currently, with a woman and a man sat in a chair.
It'll never catch up.
And a trophy. It's all very exciting. It's all very positivity.
Well, we just need it. We need it backed up with some governance action on where the sport is going and how it puts itself in a position when it comes to the next round of TV negotiations to get an improved deal rather than a decreased deal. At the moment, we need to see more, because if I was a broker, I'd just go, well, unless you're changing, you're getting the same. We might buy into you, give us 3 years, but we're not talking about a significant new level of investment.
Have we missed anything? I don't think we've missed anything, have we? We mentioned Sean Wayne. There's nothing really much to say about him. Oh, there's a story about the John Davison story with Ian Lenigan's in here about the criticised Leeds for paying their players. Yeah, they're not paying them. Well, they are, but not.
Rewarding. Covering their expenses.
40 quid. If that.
Yeah. Give us your petrol bill.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Right, there's a headline about Lee Radford. Radford, Tigers must stay in tough contest. Well, he puts him. Can't know about that anymore. I've just attacked a player as if I was Conrad Hurrell. What's happening in Canadian Rugby League, says Addison. Not a whole lot at the moment, sadly. NARL, no start date in sight. The Ottawa franchise has already folded. I haven't got a clue. No, we don't either, Addison. We'll try and find some answers, but I wish they'd just make their mind up in America who they're going to just stop inventing new bloody competitions and play some games.
It's happening. Slowly but surely, a new constitution has been written and will be signed up to. But that's the USARL. Canada, I think, we need to know that hopefully by the end of this year there might be an America's Championship, and you need to know that Canada are going to be strong, the USA are going to be strong, Brazil we know are at the beginning of their men's journey, but they're going to be relatively stronger, and Jamaica need to back up, having been in one World Cup, getting towards qualifying for another one. So that region of the world could be our Pacific, as you mentioned earlier, that the NRL has made sure that the Pacific is rugby league territory. Well, we need to work harder to make sure that North America is more league than union.
I mean, we talk about international governance of rugby league and this and that and the other, but at least we didn't draw the World Cup 3 years before it happened. So, we have that as our saving
Don't
grace.
think we've had anybody sent to jail who was organising the...
Some people who should be sent to jail. I mean, good luck to Lee Radford taking a job with the Samoan Rugby Union or whatever, because I'm sure they must be in the World Cup. They must be in their World Cup. I'm not paying no attention to it. It just happened. But good luck to all those people who've been sacked. And I don't know. We'll probably be back next week because we may as well do.
We're
this
having fun,
on a
aren't
basis, yeah. Got nothing else better to do on a Monday afternoon. Come to Leeds, unless it snows. So enjoy the week in rugby league. Wednesday special edition of the podcast up. I think you'll enjoy it. There's some newsworthy stuff in there. Well, I think there's a little bit of newsworthy stuff.
I think so.
And just a general chat with someone nice, so that's good. And thanks for commenting if you were watching us live, and if you haven't, well, fair enough. You've got other things to do in your life. Let me press end stream and then it'll be over.